Hey, good morning. Welcome to First Word. Pastor Dave coming to you from beautiful Linwood, Minnesota. First Word, where we get to look into the Bible together, explore God's Word together. We're going through the book of Mark, and we're in a complicated passage. Jesus is in Jerusalem for the last time. The crucifixion is near, and Jesus is giving his disciples a fair warning about some of the hardships ahead, the destruction of the temple. And today we're continuing in this dialogue with Jesus and his disciples in some complicated verses in Mark 13. Encourage you to read the whole thing. We read it a few days ago, but we're going to pick it up in Mark 13, verses 24 to 31. So let's dive in. But in those days, following that distress, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. At that time, people will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. And he will send his angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the four ends of the earth to the ends of the heavens. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. Even so, when you see these things happening, you know that it's near, right at the door. Truly, I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. The word of the Lord. All right, so for those versed in biblical imagery in the Bible, and it seems like Jesus has now started talking about his second coming and his return, and so that's one interpretation of this, one that I think has a lot of validity and weight. Before this, Jesus was talking about some of the suffering that the disciples would endure in their lifetime, and he alluded and talked about the temple being destroyed, which we know was going to happen in AD 70. There was a 4-year war from AD 66 to AD 70. And so there's a lot of ink spilled, and if you want to ask further questions or want to read further, I can give you some resources. Because one of the questions is this whole thing about the destruction of the temple, and one of the arguments, I haven't read a ton about it, but I can point you to some resources. But because he says this will all take place in this generation, then there's some argument to be made. Maybe he's talking about the destruction of the temple and the dispersion of the Jews and everything that's going to take place in the next 40 years. But then there's a lot of imagery there that really seems strongly like he's talking about the second coming, when all who believe in Jesus will be gathered. You'll see the Son of Man coming in the clouds. And so, yeah, there's some difficult Greek in this, and there's some good arguments to be made. We know all of that to be true, but let's just look at this. First, there's this cosmic imagery of the disasters. The sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars will fall from the sky. And this is familiar language to Jewish people as you talk about the horrors of disaster, such as wars and earthquakes. I can give you examples from Ezekiel, Joel, Amos 8, verse 9. We'll look at a couple from Isaiah 13:10. Says, the stars of heaven and their constellations will not show their light. The rising sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, in the context of judgment. And then we have Isaiah 34:4. All the stars in the sky will be dissolved, and the heavens rolled up like a scroll. All the starry host will fall like withered leaves from the vine, like shriveled figs from the fig tree. So this language is to get people's attention, to get people to know that God is serious about sin and judgment, that the prophets continually tell the people, shape up or you're going to be shipped out, shape up or God's going to leave you to your own devices and you're going to experience the consequences of your poor decisions. And so a lot of this language is more than metaphorical, one author said, but less than literal. The language is traditional language used by the prophets for the day of the Lord, and it is used because it evokes all the ideas associated with that day of judgment. And then it talks about the Son of Man, which we continue to reference Daniel 7. That's where the Son of Man is discussed, and the Jewish listeners would have thought of Daniel 7. And Jesus continually puts himself as this man that's going to come with power and authority and institute his kingdom one day. And for Mark's readers, this passage would be an assurance that whatever sufferings they may have to endure, their faithfulness to Jesus will be rewarded on the last day when they are acknowledged by the Son of Man. So Jesus continues to tell them, life is going to be difficult, but push through, endure to the end. And then everything will be made right, and you will be vindicated, and it will be worth it. And I think it's a message for all of us, whatever we're facing, to hold the faith, to follow Christ. It will be worth it. I think of Hebrews 12, 1 through 3 as a good takeaway. I want to give you this as an encouragement. It says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart." For the joy set before him, Jesus went to the cross. Consider him when things are hard, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Maybe a good word for us today. Mark closes this section with the fig again. Remember, the fig tree was a symbol of Israel. In Israel, most trees were evergreen, but not the fig tree. It was deciduous. And so it was a marker of spring and summer, of new life, of hope and fruit. And so the one fig tree that didn't have any fruit, Jesus used it as a metaphor for the Israelites, that you're like a tree that should have a lot of goodness and fruit for the world, but instead you're empty. And then Mark shows this fig tree that's blooming, and the leaves are coming out, and that summer is near. And so he leaves this with a message of hope, that the Messianic age will be here. Jesus will come and make everything right. Keep the hope, keep the faith, keep watching, and we're going to find out in the next few verses. Stay active, stay loving your neighbor, stay seeking God. Consider Jesus, who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Friends, have a good Thursday. May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Thanks for joining us on First Word. Our artwork is by Emily Lemon, our sound production by Chris Stoltzman, and our original music by Lonnie Leo. Oh, hey, one announcement before I go. Next week, I'm going to be on vacation. I'm going to be spending some time in Iowa visiting my parents and just getting away for a little bit, a little vacationing. So there'll be no First Word next week. But then we'll resume and finish the book of Mark after that. We'll finish Mark 13 on Monday of the following week. Also, if you have any ideas for the next book for us to study in First Word, I'd be interested in your thoughts, and we'll have to make a decision, but you can cast a vote on what you'd like to hear next. All right, have a great day, friends. Here's some of music from my friend Lonnie Leo.